Angels and Magic, Part 1. This begins a series of transmissions that are coming through based on the questions I have about angels, who and what they are, how and when and why we contact them, particularly even the formalized way we call on them using their names through magic and during magic ritual ceremony and even prayer work. So this does include some personal information specific to me, but most of the transmission is more general in nature and is the beginning of a series that I think will help explain angels and what and who they are and how we as humans connect with them. I'll be reading from the transmission that came through directly without any editing, and so I edit these very little, and I might include personal comments at the end, but I will always alert you to when I'm switching to a personal comment. Most of the video will be me reading directly from the original transmission. I hope you enjoy. We are transmitting and wish to respond to the questions you're carrying in your heart at this time. We're aware of the angel energy that you're inquiring about. This is indeed a complex subject and will take numerous sessions to fully define and explain, but we are happy to offer preliminary explanations at this time in order to help you decide how you'd like to proceed with your practice. We ask that you clear your mind of the preconceptions you have regarding this subject in order to allow our transmissions to reach you free of incorrect attachments. We are also aware of the concerns you shared at the beginning of this session, and you are correct to question this experience. Through your questions and our answers, you will come to know the truth. Let us begin. As we have stated, we have among us dear Arcturian beings who are sewn into the fabric of your soul's journey. They move as you move, and they share soul advancements with you as brothers and sisters might. They do reside in a less dense dimension, and they resonate to higher frequencies than those your earthly five senses can usually detect. There are those who share their dimension who are called as, quote, angels. They share concerns with earth humans just as your soul family does with you. They move with their counterparts and are sewn into their respective journeys just as your angelic family does with you. The term angel in this case refers to their calling and function. A similar calling and function exists in each soul family. For example, those with close ties to the Pleiadian star family are linked to angelic brothers and sisters who dwell in that dimension. There are many types of soul families. The extraterrestrial star nations you are aware of are only a few representations of the kinds of soul families that exist. There is a need to classify things in order to understand them. This has to do with the basic purpose of all languages. Your thoughts are restricted to those things you can identify and classify through language technology. Where words don't exist to describe something, your ability to categorize the imagery remains elusive. Those indescribable items can be difficult to use effectively in your state. Example, when a person goes through medical training, much of that training involves learning new vocabulary and descriptions of procedures incorporating that vocabulary. With practice, a physician is able to implement his new knowledge by translating words into actions and remedies. But it all starts with a vocabulary expansion and a greater understanding due to the increase in language ability. Non-language-based experiences occur all the time and are processed at a soul level, but they do remain difficult to recreate or implement in physical dimensions without the proper terminology to describe or dissect them for greater understanding. Many humans have now begun to label and categorize these kinds of experiences, which is establishing a, quote, new language in your dimension. This is very helpful. As it spreads, more and more Earth humans will be able to relate these kinds of experiences to one another, and therefore be able to begin serious study of such things. This study will in turn allow humans to expand their experiential capacities. The power of language works in multiple directions. It offers power from the inside out, and it calls in power from the outside in. It circles throughout the universe as a conduit for creation. Adopting new language that will define and explain meta-experiences will enable your species to understand and begin to control these experiences, as all creators are meant to do. You are well aware that to be successful in communication, the circuit which we referred to in the previous session must be closed. Example, you speak to someone, they hear what you've said. They process your words according to their level of understanding. They absorb the meaning of your words, and finally they exercise a choice as to if and how they will respond. When the speaker and the listener are similar in levels of understanding, the meaning of the spoken words is understood, an appropriate response can be issued, and the circuit of that communication is closed. When there's a great difference in levels of perception or understanding between the communicators, one or the other is unable to send or receive an appropriate arrow of language energy. The communication circuit then remains open, and the listener or the speaker or both remain unfulfilled after the attempted exchange of information. We've digressed into this short discussion pertaining to the art of language, as it directly applies to our ability to answer your questions regarding the definition and origins of angels. Much of the information that would satisfy you on a deeper level is not yet available to your level of understanding. In fact, we too can only access what's available to our current level of understanding. We are happy to share what we know. We trust that in time, we will be able to communicate more effectively with you about these matters. The angelic names that you are currently studying have been inherited from various mythologies and cultures in your Earth dimension. The energy beings who carry these names do have some things in common, but you must keep in mind that their names and functions have been assigned to them by mortals without the proper depth of understanding. Therefore, there is much room for incorrect information and misunderstood principles. We'll attempt to recount the history of the angelic systems your Earth family is most familiar with. We describe this history in terms that can be comprehended by you at this time. Therefore, remain aware that as your understanding and language expands, we'll be able to offer more satisfying information. The names you are researching do indeed reflect angelic technology, but these names were assumed by those who sought to rule over the human race, beings who felt entitled to serve as your gods, as they were largely responsible for your genetic creation. There are many levels and/or dimensions of reality. Each of these vibrates to a set of unique frequencies. As a dimension moves up the scale in frequency, the less dense it becomes. Typically, an expansion in understanding and a greater absorption of the divine language also occurs as frequencies rise. However, in some dimensions, the ability to apply such knowledge becomes very difficult. The dimension might support experiential accumulations of knowledge, but offers no outlets for creation-based experiences on the new acquisition of that knowledge. The soul must move into new sets of frequencies in order to blend the new levels of knowledge with the ability to create according to that knowledge. These dimensions we shall call middle kingdoms. They blend the advantages and disadvantages of physicality with the laws that apply to spiritual creative powers. They serve as resting and experimental arenas that lie between the dimensions where large knowledge downloads and expansive experiences are dispensed. In each dimension, specific types of soul technologies exist. These technologies build upon each other, much like lower education leads to higher education in your scholastic system. When souls move through a non-language experience, they shift their attention towards defining that experience. This shift leads them naturally towards the dimension where the frequency of and the technology therein resonates to their experiences. In some cases, where the dimension is ethereal and accessible to your consciousness while in the physical body, the soul can receive the information from the resonant dimension and begin utilizing it immediately, according to the free will. In other cases, the human body is not capable of synchronizing with a high enough dimension to reach the interpretations the human brain is searching for. These are the experiences that remain undefinable until a time when the soul can merge into the appropriate dimension or frequency necessary to receive the answers it seeks. The soul then continues its journey through various types of dimensions based on its desires and readiness to proceed. Many beings that you refer to as extraterrestrials are only more slightly advanced than your own Earth human species. While they might exhibit advanced physical technologies, they may not be any more advanced than your own species with regards to soul technologies. Life forms as advanced as the Earth human species have been created through the co-creative laws of divine source and the implementation of scientifically advanced species. Physical bodies can be created through scientific manipulation, but divine creative laws must be implemented before a soul can inhabit such a body. Those who have contributed the most to your current species incarnations are highly advanced scientifically and have access to the divine laws needed to allow souls to inhabit the physical bodies they prepare and manipulate genetically. By combining their secular knowledge with divine invocations, they were able to establish the current humanoid species on your planet. As your creators, they became your stewards. This means that overseeing your evolution has fallen into their hands. In order to lead you along an appropriate path of evolution, they set themselves up as your gods. With this implied authority, they maintain control and contact with you. As a whole, they are more advanced than your current species. However, they are on the same path of evolution as your own species. They are still affected by low frequencies and egotism. They are a creative alliance that is composed of members from several soul families. We have those among us who are called as members of that same alliance. It is universal and galactic in nature and is currently in a middle kingdom state of existence, meaning that the alliance has extensive knowledge and can currently experiment with that knowledge in physical and semi-physical dimensions. Members of that alliance, along with entire soul families, will proceed into a higher dimensional frequency where new downloads of information will be added to their collective and individual knowledge receptacles when they're ready to merge into such a dimension. Middle kingdoms exist between physical interplay and spiritual expansion. Therefore, souls existing in such kingdoms can access both types of experience and knowledge. Your current Earth is in such a state, just at a lower level than the above-mentioned alliance. There is a principle, as above, so below, that applies to this point in our discussion. Just as you access spiritual principles that you learn about, such as prayer, sound technology, or manifestation techniques, so do the members of this creative alliance have access to spiritual principles above their current state. And just as you are able to produce material evidence of your accumulated knowledge, so do the members of the previously mentioned alliance practice the skills that result from their studies. As a result of their knowledge, they're able to provide you with more advanced spiritual and scientific technologies than you would otherwise have access to. One of the technologies they have shared with you is one we shall call Angelic technology, and it is based on spiritual truths originating from a high kingdom. High kingdoms are those dimensions that dispense knowledge and experience through the transference of light frequencies and vibrations of divine love. These kingdoms are leveled according to resonance, just as we have described in the case of the middle kingdoms. During a soul's stay in a high kingdom, it is not possible to replicate or create from the acquired knowledge in any physical sense. It is a state of high awareness and expansion that will eventually lead to the soul's desire to put the new knowledge into practice. At that point, the soul will emerge into a new and higher middle kingdom, where the soul can create according to the new expansion of knowledge it has received. We are attempting to explain this complex cosmology in language that you can understand. We do apologize now for any misconceptions that will occur as a result of the inadequacy of the level of understanding currently available with regards to our communications with you. With that warning, we shall continue the discussion at the current level of our shared language capabilities. The Creator Alliance that we have referred to is able to access higher spiritual information and is also able to share that information with their creations as they deem necessary. In most cases, Creator Alliances will always progress ahead of their creations and therefore continue to act as stewards. There are circumstances where creators take different paths of evolution than their creation. And in these cases, the creations are accepted into appropriate soul families and begin to receive stewardship from new Creator Alliances. We shall discuss more about this at a later time if it is your wish to receive that information. The names that you associate with the angels are packages of sound technologies that come from your Creator Alliance and are based on their spiritual knowledge of the high kingdom that merges closest with their current dimension. The sounds used in these names are tones that are capable of opening up lines of communication between your dimension and those of higher frequencies. In some cases, members of the Creator Alliance have assumed the name as one of their own. In other cases, the names are revealed as symbolic references to divine energies. Let us answer your question pertaining to the usage of the calls and other audible utterings of these angelic names. If a human chooses to call upon an angel through intoning the corresponding name, that person will be inviting an energetic portal to open. This portal is a conduit to the energy, function, and in some cases, an actual entity that corresponds to the sounds uttered by using the name. It is not guaranteed that the portal will be opened or received on the other end, but the request to open such a portal is always heard, as it is an invocation that follows the law of sounds from the higher kingdoms. In the case that the sounds do reach an actual entity, it may be an entity representing the divine truth of the sounds, not the original sound bearer of the highest kingdom, where all divine sound technologies originate. In other words, in the case of the Earth human family, the sounds may reach the ears of the being who has claimed the function, name, and calling as part of their service in their Creator Alliance. There are specific cases which add complex elements to this explanation. However, we sense your weakening connection and will say that this explanation will serve you best at this time. In general, should you choose to utter an angelic name, you will initiate contact through a stream of corresponding energy to one who can choose to hear and answer your call. The sound bearers of the highest kingdom resonate to each sound under the jurisdiction of their creation, and all is contained in the divine source. If you manage to hold the energy of a strong intention when you utter the sounds associated with a particular angel, you will be tapping into the stream of energy that emanates from the original sound bearer, and thus you will activate your intention in your physical domain. This information will suffice for this session. We're willing to share much more information about angels in future communications. It is clear your energy is waning and our communication channels are weakening. We retire from this session and leave you with our blessings. We await your return.